We started farming in 2018, first sales in 2019. But we weren't at the marina until 2021.
Okay. And why are you an oyster farmer?
Because I'm insane. Actually, I'm an oyster farmer because I have 7 grandchildren, and my husband and I were looking for something to do in our next retirement years. I wanted to do aquaculture, enclosed fish farming, take the poop, grow plants. 10 years ago, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. At the end of the day, you still had thousands of pounds of fish poop. And so oysters don't really create much poop. They clean the water, and we need water clean because 85% of our bars in Oyster Bay are non-productive. That means dead. And so we're hoping that if we farm oysters and keep the bay clean, that Mother Nature will have a chance at recovering herself. So it's a give back.
Perfect.
It's a lot harder than I thought, though. Bill Walton knows exactly what I think about how hard it is. And I won't say it here because there is no filter.
One of the things we want to hear from you is, because we know that every day brings its own set of challenges, but what's your ideal day on the farm?
Oh my gosh, an ideal day is somewhere in, let's say, early spring, late fall, Indian summer. The weather is between 65, 68, and 72, 73. The no-see-ums aren't out yet. The farm has been completely tumbled. We try to tumble everything within every 30 days. It's been sorted by market brand, and we have a massive order on a Wednesday. So we get up right before the sun comes out. I get to the farm. My guys and gals are ready with smiles on. We get out on the water. There's a dolphin swimming behind us. We might see a manatee, definitely an eagle or two, an osprey, sometimes a pink spoonbill. We go out and get those oysters. We bring them back in. They're flawless to count because they've already been sorted. Bag them up, box them up, and by lunchtime, we are just singing to ourselves. That's a perfect day. It doesn't ever happen that way, but it's a perfect day.
And there's usually a beer at the end, right?
I'm sorry?
Usually a beer at the end, right? Of a good day.
Oh, yeah. There's always a beer from Oyster City, or some of us prefer wine because beer makes us fart. But did I make you laugh? That was the idea. Ha-ha. Storytelling includes something that'll make them laugh. So at the end of the day, and that could be 2 o'clock, that could be 8 o'clock. It depends on the day. But on a perfect day, it's about 2, which never happens either. But one can always hope.
Love it. My last question for you is, where do you get those fabulous earrings?
Oh, well, so I grow little honeys. My team and I grow little honeys. These are the closest thing I could find to little honeys before I actually had any on the farm. These are from Etsy. I'm a big proponent of supporting artists and artwork. We're New Orleans. There's art everywhere. Order yours on Etsy.
Thank you, Jody.
I started farming oysters in 2017, but the company I started in 2019, but the company started around 2017. And I got in it through my buddy Kyle. We both went to high school together, and he was looking for some help on his farm and was like kind of giving me the spiel for a couple years about what it was about. And I came down for about every weekend for a month just to like not only just have a beach weekend, but just to see what this whole oyster operation is about. And fell in love with it pretty soon, just like the idea of living at the coast and doing something that you truly believe in, that you're producing a really healthy food source. It's good for the environment. It's definitely can build a profitable business long term. And yeah, it's just all made sense.
And I'm so sorry I didn't introduce you. Tell everybody where you're from, your farm. Sorry.
Oh yeah. It's Crystal Coast Oysters at Morehead City in Newport, North Carolina. And yep, my name's Philip Lannon.
Sorry.
You're good.
Okay, so we're gonna switch up the prompt on you. And so, what is something really surprising, interesting? Could be really funny, like Jody said. Funny is always good. That you've learned since you and Kyle started. Like it could be a very specific anecdote, just something like what blew your mind one day.
Let me think. Well, we started in the back of the Newport River, where there's a lot more fresh water. It's more muddy, maybe more nutrients in general. But we initially thought that this is like a bad area to grow oysters because maybe it's not as salty, it closes a lot more often. It can only take so much rain before they shut us down, whereas like other quadrants like closer to the inlet stay open longer. So we were like, oh yeah, like we just need to apply for leases downriver and it'll make our life so much easier. We had a lease on like a sandbar close to the inlet. It was sandy bottom, no mud at all, and like we ended up finding out that that was like not nearly as ideal as where we started out. It like we had a bad spat set. There's a lot more wild oysters out that way, and it like caked a bunch of our gear, and we ended up losing it, like hundreds of thousands of oysters. And we still have that lease, and we might still get back out to it one day for doing clams. I don't, who knows? But it was pretty hilarious when we realized, like, oh, the back of this river is way more ideal, just for a lot of different reasons. Maybe nutrients. It's more protected. It's not as windy on certain sides of the river. And we just like didn't know what we had the whole time.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else you want to say?
I think that's it.
Okay, cool.
We're going to go to Kanan. When I reached out to him to see about this panel, Kanan's with Pelican Oyster Company, and if you don't already, please follow him on social media because it's very entertaining. But he's in Florida, and when I reached out to him, I said, we're going to talk about this, and he said, okay, I'll think about it. And then he came back to me with something called Death Wish, mistakes we knew we were making, a short story. So Kanan, how long have you had your farm?
I think 2017.
Okay. And why are you a farmer?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Why are you an oyster farmer?
I'm an oyster farmer because I decided I wanted to be. I had an opportunity to change careers, and I wanted to work outside. I wanted to work in nature. I wanted to do something good for the environment, and somehow oyster farming is where I landed. Yeah, so we've been doing it since I think 27. When was the first Oyster South? So I got my lease the week before the first Oyster South.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this Death Wish.
That's just, I don't know, Jody always jokes about me having a death wish, and, I just like to have fun, and sometimes that other people think that's scary. I can't really point to anything exactly.
It's fine. How about your ideal day out on the water?
Ooh, my ideal day is when one of you guys comes to visit and we say, fuck it, let's work harder tomorrow and let's have fun today. and maybe we'll work a little bit, but we can go walk in the oyster bars and maybe eat some oysters. And I don't know, I get to have a perfect day often.
You do. How about, yeah, one of the most surprising things that you've learned being out there?
Oh man, that nothing's easy. There's nothing free or cheap in the ocean. So it's all work, and you get what you put in. Yeah, I think that's surprising to a lot of people, and that's why they think oysters are too expensive, because they think you just throw them out there and they're little watermelon seeds that pop up.
If only.
If only.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kanan.
Yes.
All right, you can hand the microphone right next to you. Let's go to Adrian. So Adrian actually works with Jody and Dewey at Cypress Point, but he also now he has his own oyster farm. Tell me when you started it.
I'm going on my second year now.
Second year, okay. Appalachiasis?
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Okay, so what you sent me some great info on your backstory, but let's condense it a little bit and just tell me, why did you choose this path? Why did you choose to be an oyster farmer?
I accidentally discovered oyster farming by accident. We got sent home early due to COVID from a baseball scholarship that I was on in Alabama, and I was going to the beach, and I saw this big building that said hiring, and it looked like a big seafood place, and I'm a big fisherman and outdoorsman, so I needed to make some money as well. So I stopped by there, and without any knowledge, I ended up learning the basics of oyster farming. And one day I was looking like a sad puppy there, and because I wasn't happy, and I seen Jody and Dewey pull up, and they were processing oysters, and I just looked at her, and I was like, dreadful, are y'all hiring? And crazy how the universe works, because about 5 months later, they hired me, and I got a position working for Cypress Point, and I've been loving my Spring Creek family ever since.
That's awesome. But what pushed you to do your own thing a little bit? Why did you start what you're doing now?
I'm not sure. I just loved the processes that Jody, Dewey, and Kanan and Shining Dimes all showed me, and I wanted to try it on my own.
Cool.
Yes,
But you're not, I think something that has always been so exciting to me about this, and particularly what you guys have going on in Florida. I mean, you are doing it on your own, but you're not, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're
I got
really
a big
not.
family, and
You
I've
guys
always
are
got somebody to help me.
so supportive, and that's really cool. Okay, so do you want to tell me about perfect day on the farm, or do you want to tell me something like funny, surprising that you've learned, or both?
Perfect day on the farm for me, probably just like Jody said, seeing the dolphins follow us, seeing otters swim around us, and I love when the water clears up, seeing all the sheephead just swimming around on the bottom. It's just a great experience being outside for me.
Okay. Well, tell me something, I guess, surprising. Like, as you said, I guess you kind of walked into it without a lot of knowledge. So, again, I guess something that really has stood out to you that maybe you would not have thought.
Just everything, honestly. I had no idea you could get seed. I thought oysters were I thought they started out big, you know. And I had no idea about the seed, and we actually did some field nurseries with Jody's help, and it was just crazy. It was an awesome experience to take an oyster smaller than your fingernail and then grow it out, be able to market ready. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, that's cool. All right. Let's see. What do we got?
How about Alyssa?
So nervous.
Alyssa McNair, also a board member. She has NC Oyster Co. With her husband Connor in Hampstead, North Carolina. How long have y'all had your farm?
2017.
That was the year. And why are you an oyster farmer?
My husband romanticized this to me. It was always his dream, and he took me to all these awesome raw bars and told me how awesome it was going to be. And yeah, no, I actually really love it. And I was always an athlete and in the fitness industry, so working farming, I instantly fell in love with, and the whole culture and everything. We were big swimmers together, so yeah, I just immediately fell in love with it, and I knew that he needed help doing everything, so yeah. Free labor, pretty much.
Well, and it is, I mean, it's pretty balanced because you're on the farm, but you've done every job on land too.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about your story?
Right, yeah. So we started out just farming, and then my role definitely changed once I had the baby, and I took over a lot of the on-land portion of the business while we hired some more farmers and everything to keep growing. I got a nickname, the mother shucker, because like the picture you saw before, I would go shuck and wear the baby on my chest, so that was always fun.
Yeah, rolling in and out of the boat. That's an
that was
image.
good.
Yeah.
That was embarrassing.
So now you were saying your ideal day is actually
My ideal day is to go out on the farm. Yes. Yeah, that would be it for me.
just to actually get your hands
To actually get to go farm. Yeah.
Awesome. And how is it going with a little one and farming?
Yeah, I have a little 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, and the little boy is getting into it. He's unloading the ice packs into the freezer, and he bosses around our entire crew, so it's really funny to see, but we love that everybody puts up with it and that we can include him and all that, so it's good.
Yeah, passing it along one day.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Hey, Boris.
Hey, how's it going?
Boris Guerrero has Grand Isle Sea Farms over here on Grand Isle.
That's it.
And how long has your farm been operating?
We started around 2013, 2014, around that time, and started selling our oysters about 2015.
Okay. What got you into oyster farming?
Well, I guess killing oysters. No, but that's part of it, right? But we have my family has a agriculture background, and we were looking for something similar into that area or field. And eventually we ended up, finding this oyster spot, or like oyster lease in Grand Isle, and we kind of went for it, hoping or thinking that it was going to be the same as growing a plant, but it turned out completely different. It's just not agriculture for sure. And yeah, that's how we got started.
How'd you find that spot?
It was a newspaper ad. Yeah. This was maybe 2012. Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Well, we wanted to have you talk a little bit about what has surprised you the most. I mean, you kind of just summed it up there about plants versus aquaculture, but
Right.
tell us a little bit about what has been surprising about this career.
I think the most surprising thing is, like, since we started, like how much like change we've seen in the waters, just with not only the waters but the weather. Just starting with like the river being so high, or like record high Mississippi River levels, or record low. This past year we had a drought, hurricanes and everything. So like it seems like every year is different. And kind of keeping your toes, and that's also hard. That's hard to do when you're dealing with oyster mortality, and thinking like, why are my oysters dying? But it's like you have so many variables that goes on to grow these oysters. But yeah, so it's very challenging, and it's surprising really how fast and everything changes.
Yeah. And not just oysters, right?
Not just oysters.
No, I mean, you're also doing crawfish.
Yes, so that's something new that we ventured in, and that's again, it's so dependent on weather, and it's so hard to control.
Yeah, and
very hard.
This has been a tough time.
It sure has.
Yeah. We got to try some the other night, and it was they were pretty special. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Boris.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we've got one guy left. Yeah, can you pass that down to Ryan? So, of course, this is Chef Ryan Pruitt. He's here at Pesh in New Orleans, and he has been a very vocal champion for oysters and farmed oysters and southern farmed oysters for quite a while. And I was originally going to ask him why, but I think and you can speak to that real quick, but I think we've kind of maybe heard a lot of that. I really want to know, obviously quality is key in an oyster when you're choosing, what you're gonna put on the menu. But how much does knowing the farmer and knowing their story play into your decision? Like the things you were just kind of hearing, does it?
Yes, I would say that is probably the number one factor for us for our purchasing.
Wow.
I want, first of all, I want to have a one-to-one relationship with the people that we're buying from. In a perfect world, of course it doesn't always work this way, but to be able to call them, to be able to have a back and forth interactive relationship is the ideal situation. To know that, we know who we're buying from and they know who they're selling to, and that we trust them to provide us with a consistent, high quality product that they're proud of, and that they trust us to present what they've spent all their time and effort producing in the correct manner. I've always said that that's the best way to buy for a restaurant. Whether it's fish or turnips or oysters or shrimp, having a direct relationship makes all the difference. And that's only on a personal level. If you were to expand it out into a kind of marketing perspective, when it comes time to tell those stories, you have a story to tell. Saying that you bought it from a wholesaler's truck is an accurate representation of how food enters our system, but it's not a very good story. Saying that, we bought an oyster from a friend on Grand Isle that drove it up here in his truck and walked in the back door with baskets of oysters is a much better way to sort of color the product.
Yeah, and I think consumers, particularly maybe when they're eating oysters, it is about eating the oyster, but that experience, I think, is a piece of it. Like they want to know that story too.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and you can say though, why do you love Southern farmed oysters? Go ahead and tell us. I've said we probably heard it before, but you can tell us again.
Yeah, so when we opened Pesh in 2013, we were not only serving Southern oysters. We served a West Coast, an East Coast, usually Hama Hama and Island Creek, and then we had a dredged Louisiana oyster, which we always still have. And then we started serving Alabama oysters and from Cullen Duke. And it occurred to me one day, maybe 6 or 9 months into the restaurant, that we were doing a disservice to the possibilities of the restaurant, that we could have an opportunity to represent the Gulf South and represent the seafood in the Gulf. And, you know, even in that short period, I had already grown tired of hearing people talk about the Gulf oyster as a commodity product. And it got really frustrating, you know, and we started seeing the quality that was possible. You know, for us, it was through the Cullen's oysters on Dauphin Island, that we looked at it and we were like, you know what, we need to become spokespeople for the Gulf South, and we need to start to represent our products in the high-end boutique nature that they deserve to be represented. And so we completely switched our whole purchasing program over to Gulf seafood only. And it hurt, you know. I miss a lot of those oysters. I miss wild striped bass and black bass from the East Coast, and I really missed king salmon from California and halibut and all those things that we just, you know, are off limits for us. But, you know, from a mission statement point of view, you have to have some philosophy that drives the business. You know, you have to be able to tell a story. And, you know, for us, especially in the beginning, you know, when the restaurant is seeking to create an identity and, you know, how do you represent the business? How do you pitch it to somebody in, you know, a minute or less? You know, saying that we are a Gulf seafood restaurant and then expounding on that slightly became not only an easy way to describe the restaurant, but something that felt meaningful and like it had an actual purpose to it. And we've stayed true to that. And we always will. You know, it's just, it became who we are. That's a bummer because I miss a lot of that other stuff. And I miss getting oysters and I miss clams and all the stuff that we used to buy from all over the country. But
can you grab some of that and like have it at your house, cook it at home?
Yeah,
no,
there are.
That's okay. That won't violate anything.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Okay, so I think what I want to do now is just, does anybody up here, from what you've heard, do you guys have any questions for each other before I ask if anybody out here has any questions? Maybe. Okay.
All right. Do you remember a few years ago?
Oh boy.
Okay, so me and Lane from Murder Point came to visit you guys, and we came out to plant some seeds, and Connor was growing, y'all were growing scallops, and the scallops had roe, and you guys had me eat scallop roe, and it was so nasty. Did people really eat that? Was it a trick?
Show of hands.
Does anybody eat scallop roe?
Who likes it? Oh, they eat it. Who like?
Okay, I just.
Only a hand? Okay, not many.
I
think you were being punked?
I think y'all were fucking with me. No?
I honestly, first of all, I thought you were going to mention something else from that trip, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think it tasted like much.
Tomato, tomato. Okay, very good. Thanks. All right, so anybody from the audience have questions for our storytellers? Or is everybody ready to go to happy hour? Oh, wait, did any of y'all want to get prompted and let you tell your story? Anybody interested? On the spot? Oh, yay, we have a taker.
I'm just curious. Here in Louisiana, we have about 20 farmers right now, and what I'm seeing is that about half of them are new to the business, very similar to what you're saying, but a good number of them are people who had generational history of being in the fisheries business, but realized they couldn't make a living in it, or they just knew they had to go do something else. And now we see them back into the business, and that's a very refreshing thing to see, that this generational skip is coming back. And I'm just wondering if any of you up there had any type of generational fishing history in your background.
So when I was a child, I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and my dad had a commercial lobster license, and I thought I had gills instead of lungs. So he would send my brother and I down, and we would dive in 20, 30 feet of water and catch lobster by hand, because you can't catch it another way in Florida. Spiny lobster, not Maine lobster. Spiny lobster can still hurt you if they wrap their tail around your hand. So you have to be quick and make sure you know how to grab them. And then we would drag this basket along the bottom of the ocean until it was full, and then throw as many as we could in the boat. That was white gold. That was my dad's side hustle. So to some respect, maybe that's where my desire to leave engineering and do something different. We have 7 grandkids. I'm hoping one of my own generation of children won't do this. They think it's too hard. But maybe my oldest grandson, who's 10, who loves to come to the farm, get really dirty, boss everybody around at 10, maybe we'll get their interest. The sad thing in our area is we have 45 leases in Oyster Bay. Only 10 of them are producing oysters today. So the first generation of farmers that went out, people like us, most of them have found it not profitable enough or too hard to manage. They maybe have bitten off more than they can chew. So it's wonderful to hear you say that young people, the next generation, are coming back. In our waters, the majority of people that we've tried to convince to come, the tongers, it's such a huge change for them that they have, I own 2 leases that a tonger owned before me, and I think we need help in this industry. So that's a great story, thank you, but my generational background was completely different than oysters, but I was in the water from the time I was 7, and I guess I haven't dried out yet.
We got anybody else?
Anybody else want to speak up?
You guys are no fun.
I want to hear about the first time you had an oyster. So, you know, some people grew up on oysters, and some people, like, I probably didn't really. The first oyster I ate raw was probably when I was 21, and I immediately followed that by putting the screwdriver that I was opening the oysters with through my hand, almost through my hand, but that was my first experience with eating raw oysters. It got better after that. I was just wondering, like, when did you guys first have raw oysters? Because I've heard stories of people eating them at 3 years old.
I did not eat. I grew up in Memphis, where there is a lack of oysters being grown. But I think I had my first oyster in my teens, like traveling down to the Gulf Coast, and I remember being in Apalachicola and eating oysters there when I was young. So that would probably pinpoint it then.
My first time eating oyster, I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. No matter the occasion, my family was always going to do a big seafood boil or fish fry, so we ate them growing up at a young age.
Yeah, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and I didn't love oysters growing up, and they'd be around, and every once in a while I'd just try to get back into them, and I didn't really love oysters until Kimball House opened up, and the first night they were open, Kizzy, who was at the time a waiter, I guess, who's now one of the partners at Kimball House, was like, "Oh, you have to try them. That's our whole thing. You have to," and it just made me appreciate them in a different way. And then And then, yes, I got really into oysters after that.
My first time eating raw oysters was like about the same year that I like started farming. But the first memory eating oysters period was like when I was like 14 or 15. It was in Galveston. My uncle Jody had 2 seafood restaurants and a seafood distribution business. And he we just went to his restaurant getting into town, and I got to have some like char-grilled oysters, like butter and garlic on them. And I just always remember how good they were. And just, that was my first oyster experience, period. And then like, I would have never realized years later that I'd like actually be farming them on my own. It was just kind of just like so crazy how small, it makes you think the world's like really small, because he was just really entrenched in that, like in the Gulf area. But then I like get into it a couple generations or a couple decades later, just with my buddy. So it was crazy.
Yeah, I was like 13, and my first oyster was very freshwater tasting oyster, and I really hated it. And then, did I tell you I was romanticized into this? So then I was taken to very awesome spots and fed very good oysters and fell in love with them.
My first oyster was probably, my teens, or maybe a little bit earlier than that. But I grew up in Ecuador, so that's, we lived in a coastal town.
Is that working?
Okay. Hello? Okay. So we live in the coastal town, so we had, a lot of seafood, and oh, it's still not working? Well, I guess we're not doing mics, I guess. It's okay. I got one. 2 down. So anyway, live in a coastal town, and we have, I guess, plenty of seafood. So like I'd had a little bit of experience with oysters, but I didn't really care for them until I started growing oysters, and then I kind of found out what the whole different tastes of wherever you grow them. Every oyster has a different taste, and obviously depending on the seasons as well. But then this was, I really started getting into them and liking them a lot more.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, I've got to ask one more, because one thing I think that we've heard with oysters and oyster growing oysters in the South is, Jody just mentioned the number of failures that have happened. People have gotten in, and so we don't want to romanticize it, but I don't want to end on a down note. I want to acknowledge that this is hard work, right, Jody? All right, it is hard work, and there are days that you want it to quit. And this is true in the restaurant business for you too, Ryan. So what is it about what you do? I mean, you could do other things. There were days you could have said, that's it, I'm out, and you stayed in. What was one thing about what you do that keeps you doing it, other than debt?
It's the glamour. Hello. I think we're all in it for the fame, the money, the glamour, the fast cars, the loose men and women, all of it, fast living. I don't know, the restaurant business can be a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know I love to complain about it. I love to enjoy it. I love to talk about it. And then whenever I have hit a wall and I'm just looking around like, this is just awful, I kind of sit back and look and think what else would I do? Where else would I go? I've been doing this for so long, I can't imagine existing another way. I really look at it and think, what are my kids gonna do for a living? They see the way that my work life works, their normal is gonna be really skewed. I hope they have friends that have normal jobs, but it's fun, it's interactive, it's a people, and we're all in people businesses, whether you're in a rural area farming oysters or not, you're still selling and working with people and their stories and the diversity of opinions and crowds, and I don't think, I couldn't imagine a career that put me in a corner in an office in front of a computer all day, although I do spend a lot of time in front of a computer. But it's interacting. You're always in public. And as much as I like to complain about that sometimes, I secretly love it.
That was great. That's a hard question, sort of. I don't want to end on a negative note either. I hate what I do, but I love what I do. And I don't do it alone, and I couldn't do it without all the help from my husband, who's our CTO, always trying to drive efficiencies, to my team, to my friends that work in our collective at Spring Creek. I do it because people said I couldn't, maybe. Tell me I can't do something, and I'm gonna do it with a vengeance. It's like a dog with a bone. But it's also extremely satisfying. Is it really fucking hard? Yes. That's what I always tell Bill. Sorry, I said I wasn't gonna use that word, but I couldn't help it. But I wouldn't trade it at this point in my life because with all the environmental changes going on, with all the cultural changes going on, it's very down to earth. Who else gets to go to work in a boat or two boats? Who else gets to get in the ocean and put anchors in? Who else gets to work with young farmers who decide they want to become farmers, not just a partner, but a real farmer? Maybe we can find some other young people in McCulloch County who want to join us. We have an internship. It's that people count on me. I count on those people. It's that fabric. Maybe kind of going back to what you said, I'm really an introvert. Believe it or not, I'm really an introvert. I've learned to be really good at storytelling, sort of crummy, bad words sometimes. But it's the least amount of money I've ever made in my whole career, because this is my retirement. It's not retirement. You don't do this in retirement because you're not retired. But I couldn't see walking away from it. It's very rewarding in so many other ways that money never, ever scratches.
For me, I think I just like the freedom of being out on the boat every day, like Jody said. And if I ever get frustrated and kind of want to give up, I just remember how lucky I am to be in the position I am with my team and all the help that I can get. And I just don't want the industry to fail, and I want to keep it going. And hopefully I can find some more people my age to join me and help me in the future. But yes, sir.
For me, I don't know what else I'd do, honestly, and I don't think I'm somebody that can have like a traditional job. I'd get Baker acted if I worked in an office, but at this point, it's just woven into my identity. I feel like I am an oyster farmer, and when it gets hard, I'll look at Adrian, and the wind's blowing, and we can't get these oysters on the boat, and who gets to do this? Nobody gets to do this. So I don't know. It's fun and it is hard, but everything's fucking hard, whatever. And so you get to choose your hard, and yeah, I don't know. I have a terrible resume. I couldn't get a job if I tried.
No, that's right. It's definitely not for everybody, especially long term. Like if you want to do it long term, it's hard on you sometimes. There's definitely bad days, but it's like it gives you an opportunity to work for yourself instead of going to work for some corporation where there's like no ceiling. You can really you'll hear people say it all the time, like you get what you put into it. So if you just like work hard, you don't give up, and you just understand that I take pride in the fact that it's really hard and maybe not everybody wants to do it. So it's something to enjoy. That's a good thing about it. And if you're slightly active, you like being outside, it's heaven. It can be heaven. So, but it's definitely hard work. It's really hard some days.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to leave a legacy and have something for the next generation. And yeah, just the camaraderie of it all is really fun too, getting everybody hype and going out and getting all the work done. So we love that.
Well, you guys ever fight some rusty bolts? Rusty bolts. They don't give you problems. Usually you're just trying to fight so many of these rusty bolts sometimes, just when you're trying to tear some engine or some kind of work that you're doing, like it's hard. Like I don't know, like it's where I was going with this. Had an idea with this, but anyway, there's little things that annoy me, and that's one of them. Just stuff that rusts away, and then it's hard to get out to replace it. But at the end, I think I'm happy to do this. The community here. I mean, this place, the people that are here. We're so fortunate to have this, and it's just so lovely to hang out with all you guys. And I think that's part of it of what we do. Just sitting here in front with all these amazing guys, amazing people here. It's just that's just part of it, and keeps us going.
I saw JT, you had your hand up. Did you have a question? He's like, oh yeah. I know everybody's looking at their watches.
In the vein of storytelling, I was going to ask, maybe just you don't have, not everybody has to answer this, but so what's the story 10 years from now for you guys? If you can write the story, what does it look like for your farm or for this industry? If that makes sense.
Who wants to take that? I want every lease oyster bay to be full and to be populating oysters, and I want the wild. I want what I see in 10 years is every lease there, and I'm only talking about Oyster Bay because everything I do probably only works for Oyster Bay and maybe only for my leases. It's so different everywhere. I want to see every lease populated. I want to see it full of 18 to 25-year-olds who love nature, love the water. Hopefully some of them work out of Spring Creek because we would like to keep the marina alive and well. It's a 1950s marina. I mean, you talk about rusty bolts. I got boards that float away and crap that falls in your head, but it's cool, it's authentic, and that's where I see people like you, JT, and people like you, Ryan. Thank you for supporting Gulf Seafood. I didn't know that's all you did. I didn't realize that. God bless you. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see this, what we've started, which is only 6 or 7 years old in Florida, and so I'm only speaking of Florida. It's got to be successful. It's a high quality food. It's an incredibly important industry for the environment. And then Mother Nature will have time to recover and restore where the new bars are supposed to be. So that's what I'd like to see. Anybody else?
We would love to see a lot more education. I feel like sometimes we feel very like enclosed as a community with our knowledge. So just being able to, bring it back to the youth and get more involved in schools and get more involved federally and, just spread the education and awareness of what this can all do would be really great.
Well, what Alyssa said again, as I opened with, that's what we at Oyster South, and we really, and the board especially want to, again, try to do a better job, or continue the job we've been doing and find some new ways, powerful ways to do that, to just that, tell everybody what you guys are doing and why it's cool and why it's important, so.
Yeah, how about a hand for these guys?
All right. Thank you.